What is happening, everyone? This is Tracy Meisner, and this is Run It Like You Own It. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everybody that you could get to me through thevideoteacher.org. It's a website that I've started to create, and I'll be putting engaging lesson plans for teachers to use, not just students, but things that you can do in your classroom to make your classroom more productive. That's the whole idea, is when your classroom is productive, your students are going to be engaged. Teaching is going to be a whole lot more fun. It's going to be a whole lot more exciting, and you get to experiment and say, wow, let me try this. Let me do this. So I want to throw out the mindset of you've got to do everything by the book. You don't. You've got to just run it like you own it. So what is run it like you own it? Simply, it's when everyone in the class or organization takes full responsibility for all that happens in that class or organization. Sounds simple, but there's more to it than that. So let's talk about how do you get started? Well, the first thing you got to do is start with the end in mind. Think about your program and think about where you want it to go. What is it that you want your student to know when they're done with your program? So for some of us, it's pass the end of pathway test. That's something worthwhile. For some of you, you want your kids to get right out into industry. For some of you, you want to get them into college and into film school. And while those are great things, what you need to actually focus on is what do you want your student to be able to do when they're done with your program? So for me, I want my student to be able to produce a video on anything. For example, if I threw them a pencil and said, give me a 30 on this pencil, you have 2 hours, make it happen. They would know exactly what to write, how to shoot it, how to edit it, how to upload it, and how to share it. So that's what I want for my student. So here's what's going to happen for you as the teacher. This is going to reward your program. Your program is actually going to begin to grow once you adopt this mindset. This isn't going to happen overnight. This is going to take a few years. You've got to be patient. But most of all, it's a mindset starting with the teacher and extending into the student. Here's where it benefits the teacher. Student engagement. Most teachers that I talk with, if I ask them, my program would be amazing if, most teachers will say, if I had student engagement. Well, Run It Like You Own It is geared to engage students. So when a student is engaged, teachers are going to have a little bit more fun teaching because things are going to go right. And here's where it benefits the student. Once the students take ownership on their learning, they are more apt to learn. This increasing productivity, thus increasing the productivity of your class. You'll slowly see students learning more than just video in your class. They're going to learn life lessons in leadership, teamwork, and in business. So, where can I see examples of Run It Like You Own It in action? Typically, you can see it in any successful business, but you'll start seeing it in your classes everywhere, perhaps disguised as some other acronym. And I know what you're thinking, well, what if it doesn't work in my class? But what if it does? Here's the thing, it can work, it will work, and it does work. You have to believe and continually shape the mindset of your students. You might just start with level 1 and continue on until your entire program has lived it. My students are not as engaged as in some classes. Let's take that back. My students are not as engaged in my class as in some others. So this can't possibly work. That's one of the naysayers that come to me. All students have the propensity to succeed. Run It Like You Own It is just one part of succeeding. It helps to teach management skills, leadership skills, team skills, and ultimately your program is going to benefit. The one who benefits most? Your students. So how do you turn your class around? As I explained about leadership, a good leader has vision. Students will buy in if you show Run It Like You Own It and let students fly. In order to achieve this, you must include these three ingredients: the student, the instructor, and the program. They are three separate entities. Our recipe for Run It Like You Own It has us doing the following. Define the student's role by empowering the student. You define where you want your program to go, and you define your role as an instructor. What is a leader? And we'll talk about that in a little bit later. But the first thing we're going to do is talk about the student's role. Here are 5 simple ways you get to empower your students. 1. Give your students a voice through forums for student feedback, such as blogs, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat. Let them talk about your class. I provide at the beginning of my semester, what do you want to learn? As long as these posts are positive. So, you've heard me say this, I keep saying this. I want you to think of your students as customers. So if your customer comes into your restaurant and orders a steak medium rare, give them a steak medium rare. If you give them a steak well done, they may eat it, but they're not going to come back. They're going to think very poorly of your restaurant. Think of the restaurants that fail. Is it because people stop eating, or is it because people stop eating there? So, by getting at the very beginning, what do you want your students to learn? This could be done on a simple Google form. If you're not technically adept, simply have them write it down and give it to you. The teacher should be able to see and have a written record of what the students are wanting to learn. They are literally telling you, please teach me this. If you teach them what they want to learn, chances are they're going to be more engaged. Number 2, give your students decision-making power in an area of curriculum and make the classroom and the studio and all its contents theirs. They share the responsibility. This student-directed curriculum idea is applicable to many other subjects. Giving students the power to choose creates a sense of ownership over learning. I have my students post what they want to learn periodically through the year. And at the end of the year, we explore those posts to see if the students learn what they wanted to learn, if the students learned other lessons than what they originally thought, or if they learned anything at all. Number 4, encourage meaningful technology use in the classroom. Use tools such as mind mapping, YouTube, Vimeo, your website, FaceTime, Kahoot, Quizlet, or other communication apps. After all, our program depends upon us staying current with technology. And number 5, involve students in real issues. A big complaint of a lot of students that I've talked to is what we learned in class doesn't seem applicable to the real world. Share real-world experiences. In my class, I do teach video, but I also teach ways to make money doing video. I have students who contract with sports teams to video and upload games, produce montages for sports banquets, and even work with realtors doing drone video. Ultimately, empowering students is about a realization. Teachers and students have a lot to learn from each other. And I know what you're thinking. Students aren't employees. Exactly. However, one day they're going to be one of 2 people. Either they're going to be working for someone or they're going to have somebody working for them. Either way, Run It Like You Own It is a great lesson in employability skills. The second ingredient you're going to need in defining your program is define where you want it to go. Teachers, ask yourself this question. My program could be great if. Or students, ask yourself this question. My video class would be awesome if. Now you've got to answer those ifs. Your students are going to tell you what would be awesome. If you've got equipment that's antiquated, that's broken, disrepair, non-existent, old technology, your students are going to say, we want new equipment. It's your job, your responsibility to find a way to get that equipment. What are those ifs for teachers? For some teachers that I've talked with, those ifs are, I want more money. My program would be better if we had more money, if I had less paperwork, if I had more autonomy, if students were more engaged, or if students actually did the project the way you wanted. And for some students, as we said, they want better equipment. They want more equipment. They want the ability to produce more fun videos. They want to be empowered. So let's recap. We learned what is Run It Like You Own It, why it's important, 5 ways to empower your students, and defining where you want your program to go. That brings us to the third ingredient you need for Run It Like You Own It, and that is leadership. What is a leader? Why do some teachers get the respect and admiration of their students, and some teachers get walked on? We'll discuss that in the next episode of Run It Like You Own It. And then we'll start focusing in on teachers that have adopted this principle and where their program started and where it is now. My goal is to interview some of the teachers that I've worked with on helping them achieve Run It Like You Own It. Not only that, but we're going to explore interviews with some of my own students that are using Run It Like You Own It, not only in the classroom, but some of them have moved on to college, to film school. Some of them are already running it like they own it in their own businesses. So, Run It Like You Own It. It seems like a simple concept. It really is. It's just exploring a business principle that already exists. And we're going to use those business principles in your classroom and get you successful. Until the next time, run it like you own it.